Welcome to Conversations with Laurel, everyone. I am your host, Laurel McHargue, and I have with me today a very special person who I think is in New Hampshire. Are you in New Hampshire?
I am. I think your accent is better than mine.
Well, I grew up on the South Shore of Boston. I live in Colorado now, but I've mostly lost my accent. I just wanted to throw that in there to let you know that I understand where you're coming from. We have with us today New York Times and international best-selling author J.D. Barker, whose writing has James Patterson's stamp of approval, if you can imagine that. J.D. Barker, welcome to my show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate what you have done in your book. So, give our readers and our listeners out there a little tease for what they'll experience when they start reading Something I Keep Upstairs.
Oh, so that one was fun. So most books take me about 3 to 4 months to write. That one took me 4 years, and mainly because there's a lot of true stuff in it. So it's a haunted house story. I've known I've wanted to write a haunted house story forever, but I didn't want to write the same story that we hear over and over again. You know, like a husband and wife buy a house, they move in, something weird happens, something weirder happens, they realize something really bad happened, and then they have to undo it or everybody dies. It's kind of always that same Bloomhouse model, I guess. So I didn't want to do that. So I came up with this tagline: for a haunted house to be born, somebody has to die. Because to me, like that's where it all starts. So in my book, there's a 17-year-old kid. He's sitting in class one day. Somebody knocks on the door and they pull him out of class, and he's told that his grandmother just passed away. And he didn't know her. They were estranged. He only met her one time, but she left him a house on a private island and a ton of money. And he does exactly what you would expect a 17-year-old kid to do with all that. He turns this house into a party house for him and his friends. Someplace they can go to get away from the police, get away from the parents, and kind of have fun for that last summer before they all go off to college. But partying gets old after a little while, and somebody raises their hand and say, "Hey, what would it take to turn this house into a haunted house?" And they start exactly where you would expect. There's a couple of scary stories. Somebody brings a Ouija board, but the tagline for the book is always in the back of your head: for a haunted house to be born, somebody has to die. So you know where they're going, but a book like this is all about the journey.
Yes, and you label this a chiller. It says a chiller. But could this, in fact, be called fiction based on a true story? Because, again, tell our listeners a little bit about Wood Island and what you discovered and, how
Yeah,
that
so like
works into this.
I had that tagline for the book in my little file of ideas on my phone for years, just kind of sitting there waiting for the other piece of whatever this was to come together. We moved to a little island off the coast of Portsmouth in New Hampshire called Newcastle. And I go for a run every day. I do a lap around the island, and at one point I'm standing on the beach. And if I look out over the water, about a quarter mile out is a tiny little island. It's only about an acre. There's one house on it. And that became the inspiration for my story. It's called Wood Island. I knew nothing about it when I first started working on this book, other than it's very picturesque when you look at it. It looks like a postcard, but it's deceiving, especially once I started to research it. I realized, like the waters in between, even though they're blue and they're beautiful, are filled with sharks. And like the area itself, like that island used to be used as a quarantine zone during yellow fever. So when people got sick back in yellow fever days, they would actually put them out on the island, and if they got better, they were allowed to come home. Nobody got better. During the Spanish-American War, if they captured a vessel, they would dock it out there and they'd force everybody to stay on the boat until they died of either starvation or something else. And then they would take the boat, because that's all they really wanted. But I learned over hundreds and hundreds of years, a lot of people died on this particular island. So I just, that's why this book took so long to write. If it was just a straight up haunted house story, I could have easily knocked it out. But I wanted to incorporate a lot of these real facts and things that had actually happened there. And every time I stumbled into a new one, it would sometimes take me weeks or a couple months to figure out how to work that into the storyline. So I would put it aside and think about it, work on another project, and come back to it. But I'm thrilled that it's finally done.
And then, of course, what we learn in this is, and you suggest in your author's notes to Google it, they found two bodies, two remains of bodies that have never yet been identified, correct?
Yeah, and that story got really weird. So somebody told me, there's a lot of local stories, so I had
Yeah.
to kind of, go through that and figure out what was real and what wasn't. But somebody had told me that two bodies had been found out there in the 70s. Somebody had boated out there and decided to picnic on the beach, found two bodies on the shore. So they immediately called the local police. And this island is in a very weird spot. It's right on the border of Maine and New Hampshire. So you got Kittery, Maine off to one side, you've got Newcastle, New Hampshire off to the other side, Portsmouth on the third side, and then open water behind it. On TV, when there's a murder, like every police officer wants that case. They're raising their hand. It's my case. It's not your case. In real life, it's the exact opposite. A murder is like a hot potato if it can't be solved because they don't want a bad stat on their sheets. So the Kittery Police Department initially came out. They decided this isn't our case. This is a New Hampshire case. So Newcastle Police came out. They decided this isn't a New Hampshire case. It's somebody else's case. Then between the two of them, they decided, well, this is federal property because the last thing this island was used for was a Coast Guard life-saving station.
Right.
So this must be a federal issue. So they brought in the FBI. So I've got a picture that appeared in the local newspaper that has the FBI, the local DA, all these people standing over these two bodies that were found out there on this island. There's a newspaper article that was written about it in the 70s, and beyond that, everything vanished. Like there is no trace of this. None of the police departments have any record of this. I contacted the FBI. They have no record of it. Nobody knows what happened to these bodies, where they went. It just, the entire case completely disappeared. So being an author, I had to fold that into my story. So that's a big portion of the story. In real life, that's actually spurred the FBI to reopen the investigation to try and figure out what happened, to try and track down these bodies. They're hoping that they're on a shelf in a medical examiner's office somewhere. And with today's technology, with DNA, they might be able to identify them.
Right. Do they know how old the remains were?
No, and that's another thing. I mean, with so many things that had happened out there on that island, they could be 500 years old. They dated them, but it sounds like they were fairly recent. But like the only real information I could find, other than speculation and local lore, is that one newspaper article,
Oh,
which I
wow.
believe I put a link. I think I put a link to that in the
Yes.
book.
Yes, you
And it's
did.
definitely up on my website,
Yeah,
just so people can find it.
and you suggest Googling it, which I did, which is why I'm saying, based on a true story, this this chiller is. So ideas for stories can come from the most mundane places, right? I mean, you see something, you find a newspaper article, and boom, you have all this information that you can use, that you could weave into your tale. It also
That's
would,
what makes
oh,
it
yeah,
fun, right? I mean, as
yeah.
a reader, when you stumble into something like that, when you can do like you did and Google it and play, armchair detective, to me that's one of the funnest part about a story like that.
Yeah. So in your author's note, you also mentioned that as a child, you never went down into the basement. Now, that made me laugh because I grew up in a place in Braintree, Massachusetts, where we had a basement and it was, blown out. It was subterranean and there was a crawl space back there too, with like some exposed rock in there, which is probably why, all of us are kind of messed up, radon, whatever. Anyway, our washer and dryer were down in the basement. And so, with five girls in my family, there was a lot of wash going on. Would have to go down and would have to do the wash, put it in the dryer, whatever. I just remember every single time, even when I was a teen, when I was done, I would run up the stairs and slam the door behind me. It was just this. Do you think it's like we have an instinctive fear of below ground things? What do you think that is? What do you think that is?
I don't know what I mean. I can tell you that every New England basement is creepy. For that same reason. I mean, they dig out a hole, they line the walls with rocks. The spiders love it. The ceilings are super low, the rafters are exposed,
Yeah.
and then everybody does what you just said. They put the washer and dryer down there, and they force the kids to have to go down there to take the loads of laundry back and forth. I grew up in a house that my father built in the middle of a forest. Like he bought a 10-acre forest in Illinois, and he built a big English Tudor right in the middle of it. So he dug out the basement. I helped him do it. I was a kid, but like I was right there on the tractor with him when he did it. We had a finished basement, with the whole rec center down there with big bar and pool table and all that. So like I saw it built, but still as a kid, it scared me half to death. And my sister and my brother, we just did not want to go down in that basement. And I don't know what it is. There's something instinctual about basements that people just do not like. Doesn't matter if it's brand new or if it's, a couple hundred years old.
I think so. We bury the dead underground, right?
Apparently, at least what they do in my book.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, they do. Oh my goodness. So you have a group of teens, mostly with 17-year-old Billy as the one of the main narrators. How did you decide on your point of view for using in this? Because that's a major decision, right?
It usually is. With this one, it just felt right. I knew I wanted to tell it from Billy's point of view. I knew I wanted to tell it in a first-person narrative, to just really bring that reader in. I wanted them to feel like they were hearing this story firsthand from the person who experienced it. I've worked on a lot of books. I spent 20 some years working as a book doctor and a ghostwriter before I started publishing under my own name. So I
Ah,
write in all the different formats. I could do third person, I could do present tense, past tense, or whatever. All of them have certain things to them that make them beneficial to a story, that make a certain story resonate a little better than another version would. So for me, this had to be first person, had to be from Billy's point of view. There wasn't even a question.
right, because we're right there with him when all these creepy, creepy things start happening. So his best friend, Spivvy, who gets this island and from a grandmother he never really knew, he has stage 4 leukemia, which was again an interesting twist to this, an interesting characteristic that you could give a main character, right? And he discovers that the island comes with rules.
The rules. I love the
The
rules.
rules, you immediately make me feel anxious, so anxious when the teens break the first rule. Where did the idea of rules come from? Because I mean, like again, right off the bat, it's like, oh gosh, we know what's going to happen.
I wish I could say that like there's a whiteboard somewhere with all these ideas on them, or I have a book that I open and I pull them out of there. But I literally, when I write this stuff, when I'm firing on all cylinders, it's like watching a movie play out in my head, and I'm just documenting it as fast as I can. So I was writing this. I wrote it as a pantser. I didn't know where the story was going. The kids got to the island. The rules were there. Like in my head, like I saw them there in the kitchen written, like, so like that became part of the story. And I wrote that chapter. I'm like, now I have to explain these rules. I like the idea of it, but like I couldn't tell you where it came from, but it felt right. And initially I pulled them out. I'm like, no, this is just going to complicate it. It's going to take it in a direction. I want to get, 80,000 words, just be done with it. But no, like those little red herrings just sort of pop up and you've got to chase them. Yeah, it is
This
not
is more than
80,000 words.
80,000 words. How
Every
many?
time I start a new book, I use a program called Scrivener, and you can put in
Oh,
your word count
yeah.
goals in there. I always start every book with a goal of 80,000 words. I have yet to hit that goal. I think this one is 120, 130. I'm not quite sure where I ended up.
It felt
But
about like that. Yeah.
yeah, you got to tell the whole story, and I grew up reading Stephen King. I had no problem knocking out 900 words in a book. And like, to me, if it's a good story, I don't care how long it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, the teens talk about death. Who doesn't, right? And at one point, Chloe, one of the characters, says, people, living things, are energy. Nothing ends. The energy just gets redistributed. Do you believe this?
I'm smart enough to believe that I don't understand everything that's out there. So I try to keep an open mind to it. We've had a lot of people out to Wood Island, paranormal investigators, and they're the ones who have told me that. Portsmouth is one of those towns that survives on haunted places. We've got
Yeah.
tours around town. There's a haunted music hall, there's haunted houses everywhere, and there's tours that will take you through all of it, including Wood Island. I went on a bunch of those, and this is just a theme that I heard over and over again. And I've watched Ghost Hunters. I've researched this as much as anybody else has. But like that's a recurring theme, and not just in the U.S. Like pretty much every culture with ghosts, they feel that. So I started thinking about that. If you've got a scenario like this island, where hundreds, if not thousands of people have actually died out there, and there really is like a release of energy, where is it going to go? It's got no place to go. So all of a sudden, this place becomes like a battery that's just supercharged with this energy. And like there's so many local stories, like even like the house that's on there now, like it was a Coast Guard life-saving station, its last life. A local guy raised a ton of money and basically renovated it, and brought it back to life. It's a museum in today's world. But during that construction process, the construction workers would hear people upstairs in the house when there was nobody in the house. They thought it was Coast Guard, like the stuff that they were saying, the things they were hearing, it sounded like people that actually worked at the station. People have seen people on the beach, a lot of little things like that. And like something has to explain it. I think sooner or later we will understand it. Right now we just have theories, and that just happens to be one of them.
And all those stories that you heard, you have echoes of in your book, and you do it beautifully. What do you want readers to feel when Spivvy makes a new rule about his friends having to bring something from someone who's died. What do you want readers to feel then?
So in the story, again, they're trying to turn this house into a haunted house. So somebody has the idea that if they take items from people that have died and they bury them in the basement, they're going to be able to generate that energy that I was talking about and kind of kickstart this house. So they start doing that. It worked great in the book, but in today's world, I mentioned the house as a museum. They've actually had to lock off the basement because people were bringing items and trying to bury them in the real basement. Like I mentioned the music hall, which is downtown. People were taking items from the music hall and wanting to bring them to Wood Island. So there's things that happen. I need to be a little bit more conscious of this, I guess, when I write a book. Like,
No, no, you don't.
think about the repercussions.
No, no, you don't. You absolutely don't, because it's wonderful. I mean, at that point, well, early on, I got creepy feels, the creepy feels, but that really helped ramp it up. So yeah, no, you don't have to worry
Well,
about repercussions.
in real life, because they were renovating this house while I was writing the book, I got to be really good friends with the guy who was running that. They actually decorated the interior of the house to match what I have in the book.
Oh my
So if
gosh.
you walk through the real house, it feels like you are standing in this story. So they've got a lot of people that, they'll just walk around on the island and like listen to the audio book, or they're reading the book as they're standing in the bedroom where some of these events took place, and it's a very surreal experience.
It must be. I was going to say, did you ever anticipate that would happen?
No, I mean,
Oh,
as an author, I think you always hope for that kind of thing, but it's really cool to see it. It's really fun to go out there and talk to the people that are doing that. Like when I go on my run every day, a lot of times because you can only get to this island by boat, and you can only go certain times during the day. The tide has to be high enough. But Newcastle, where I live, a lot of people will go out on that beach because you can see Wood Island from there. So a lot of people that read the book, they go out to the beach. So a lot of times when I run by, I'll see people with my book, taking selfies, taking pictures of themselves with the house in the background. And I just keep my mouth shut because I think it would be weird if I walked up, like, what am I going to say? Like, do you have any questions? Like,
yes, that would be so
yeah.
cool. Oh my gosh, if I were standing there on the beach with your book with the house behind me, I would just die if you were to walk up and say, "Can I be in your selfie as well?" Oh, you need to do that.
I feel that I would end up being late for dinner and I get in trouble with my wife. So probably best that I don't.
Does your wife read your books as you write them, or when they're done, or at all?
She at first she was my alpha reader, so she read everything. She would help me work the stories and tweak them. But I write so fast that it's hard for her to keep up. And then at one point she just decided, I don't want to read any more half baked books. Like I want to read it when it's finished. So like this particular one, I think she read it as a hardcover when it was actually released, because she just wanted that particular feeling instead of big stack of pages with handwritten notes all over them.
Yeah, amazing. Your characters. Oh my gosh. Benny, the Benny character from the start. I am just so intrigued by Benny. He's so good. Marty, you've got the teenage dick, right? You've got Kira, the love interest. You've got the young lesbians. You've got the occult medium, Alicia, and you also include the elders. You include parents, their backstories, the intriguing Marston, and who or what the hell is Emerson, right? I mean, that's this got to feed Emerson, don't let Emerson not be fed, and we don't know who or what Emerson is. Creepy, creepy, creepy. How do you keep track of all your characters?
I'm autistic, which I talk about quite a bit. I've got a form of autism called Asperger's syndrome. So I've got a ridiculous memory. Particularly like plotting out my books, like all of that is done in my head. The characters, like to me, they are real people. So I'm just describing somebody that I know. So I don't really need notes. I don't need like a character sketch in front of me. They're all in my head. But yeah, like I think what I was trying to really do with this is tell like there's a lot of death involved and like perspectives on death, and I wanted to basically explain that from a teenager's point of view, because I think I'm 55 now, and as you get older, like your definition of death, like it changes. The way you observe how you feel about it. I'm at an age where people that I know are dying, which is weird, because I remember being younger and like every celebrity that died, somebody I didn't really even know or I maybe caught in a movie. Now it's like all the people people I grew up with, which is stranger. But like death is just a constant presence in all of our lives, and our perspective on it just changes as we get older. So I wanted to make sure I captured the teenage version of that, but also the adult version. Because my reader base,
Yes.
an editor pulled me aside years ago and said, "Your readers are women 45 and over," and like they wanted me to target that group. So I went out and wrote a young adult book because I never do what I'm supposed to do. But I try to be conscious of that. Yeah, I went back and I read Christine, because I think King does it fantastic. Like it's all high school kids in that book, but he writes it in a way that resonates with people that are older. So it's not a young adult book anymore. It's still for adults, but the main characters are younger.
I mean, you said you wrote a young adult book. This absolutely resonated with me, and I'm 67. So, it,
Perfect.
yeah, touche. Not fair, though, that you get to just have all that stuff in your memory and bring it out and not have to take copious notes like I do. It's not fair, but that's a
Trust me, as,
gift.
as I get older, like, because I don't forget a whole lot, like my attic is getting very cluttered, and it gets very confusing, and I wish I could forget a lot more than I do.
Attics. How do you feel about attics? We know how you feel about basements. How do you feel about attics?
It's the same thing, right? Like I don't know why, but like an attic is creepy too. Like our house, brand new, built it with my dad, but I did not want to go up in that attic. It feels like this foreign place. I mean, like my house now, like we bought it and it was actually abandoned when we bought it, and we had to take it down completely to the studs and rebuild the whole thing. So it's more or less brand new. But like if I have to go in the crawl space under the house, like it completely freaks me out. Like, even at 55 years old, like I don't want to be down there. It seems like this foreign place where I'm not supposed to be. Attics are the same thing.
We don't live in the basement. We don't live in the attic. There are places where we store things and places where spiders go and bats in attics and all those things. So I think it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Um, the house to me feels more alive than haunted. Is there a difference?
I personally think that every house does have a life to it. It's like a living, breathing thing to me. I really wanted to communicate that with this book. But the house, to me, the house is a character, no different
Oh,
than the other people or the island or the other things like that. But yeah, I think I mean even like a real house to me, it feels alive. It feels like when there's people in it, when there's not people in it. Like if you go away and you come back, like there's some weird energy there that makes it feel that way. Again, one of those things you just I can't explain.
yeah. And there's a time warp element going on in it too, and I won't say any more about that. Um, the photographs on the walls. Oh, what kind of photographs do they have on the walls right now? Do you know? Out in
You
Wood
have,
Island?
you have to visit the house.
I do. I do. I absolutely do. And I have to bring this
Yeah,
book
I'm
and
honest. I'm honestly not sure. Like I know they bought like the same furniture as what I have in the book and things like that, and they decorated. I don't know if they've gone as far as putting up photographs on the walls. I know there's a sign that says "Basement is closed. Emerson is sleeping." Because that was the only way they could. They needed a way to keep people out of the basement.
yeah, yeah. So
But
the photo the
it's
photo
about it's
go
yeah,
ahead.
it's about to open. They close it for the season during the wintertime. The weather is just too nasty to be able to get out there by boat. They're getting ready to open again in May for the tourist season. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's pictures hanging on the wall.
All right. I'm very curious about that now. And you liken the photographs to hunters displaying their trophies on the wall. Do you hunt?
I do not.
Okay. I'm
I'm actually
I'm
very
guessing you
very
do.
much against it. We've got deer that run through our backyard on a daily basis, and I could never bring myself to do that.
Yeah, but so that likening to being trophies from hunters, again, just that one little idea, detail, just adds to the creepiness again because what do you put on what do hunters put on walls? The trophies. It's just the heads, and yeah, okay, enough said on that. You have a really funny line when Chief Whaley has a memory of watching football. And you said it was when he was willing to stomach the one man show that was Tom Brady. Is this the author's voice sneaking in a little bit? Are you not a fan?
I am a ruiner of football. I grew up in South Florida with Dan Marino. We moved from Illinois I moved from Illinois the year the Chicago Bears won the Super Bowl to Florida, which I think was like 83 or 84. When I got there, Dan Marino was basically starting his decline. So I saw the fall of Dan Marino. After that happened, my wife and I moved to Pittsburgh, and I got to see the fall of Roethlisberger. And then we moved to New England, and I saw Tom Brady basically on the decline. So everywhere we move, I see a quarterback that's basically, on the long, the end of their career rather than the start. Tom Brady to me is he's a fascinating guy. I mean, like he succeeds in literally everything he does. As a football fan, like he's by far the greatest quarterback in my opinion that has ever played the game, and he makes it look so effortless. But that pisses people off. And I think that here in New England in particular, a lot of people just hated the guy just because he was so good, which is it's a weird dynamic.
Yeah.
I think when I was writing this book, I've got a daughter who's 8 now. She was at the point where like she would not let me watch football, and like Sunday is dad-daughter day. Like me and my daughter always do something on Sundays. So for like the first couple of years of her life, she had no problem watching a football game with me. Then all of a sudden, she decided that's the last thing she wants to do. So I haven't been able to watch a football game in probably like 4 or 5 years. So I think that was part of it too. Like I really want to be able to get back to watching football.
Oh my goodness. What was it about watching football that she decided she didn't like?
I think it's just her age. She just decided because Dada wants to do it, we're going to do something different. I
That's
think
awesome.
that's all it is.
So we're not going to talk about the ending of Something I Keep Upstairs, but let me just say that I did not see that coming. So you say you were a pantser with this. In
Yeah.
other words, you wrote by the seat of pants. Your characters talk to you, which I know they do, and you got there. When did you know how it was going to end?
I rewrote the ending probably 3 or 4 different times. I
Oh,
wanted a happy ending in this book,
okay. We're
and I
not going to
couldn't
say we're
get
not. No
there.
spoilers. No spoilers.
Yeah,
No.
I mean, I couldn't get the ending that I wanted. Like the characters just wouldn't agree with me. The story wouldn't agree with like I'm trying to make a left turn and everything else is trying to make a right turn, and at some point they won. So I had to go with what's there. I mean, to me, the ending is the ending. Like this is what happens to them. Like it's I may not like it, the reader may not like it, reader may love it. It doesn't matter. This is what happened. This is no different than you sitting down with a friend and them telling you what they did yesterday. You can't change it. You can only listen. And that's all we're doing here. We're listening to Billy tell us, his story.
It works. It absolutely works. And so, yeah, but I did not anticipate it. So good on you for that. What is the, excuse me, what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you?
So I've done a lot of things that should be scary. Like I wrote a prequel to Dracula for Bram Stoker's family. I had access to all of Bram Stoker's notes and journals. If there was going to be a haunted experience, I felt it should come out of that. And I think in a lot of ways, Bram Stoker was in the room while I was writing that book. It felt like he was physically present, but I've never been scared of anything like that. My wife and I went out to the Stanley Hotel once. Are you familiar with the Stanley?
No.
So it's okay. So it's in Estes Park, Colorado. It's
Oh
the
yeah,
basis
we're
of Stephen King's The
Stephen King.
Shining.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So
I haven't been there.
Steve, yeah, the story goes Steve and his wife were in that area. A snowstorm was coming in, and they went to that hotel because it was like the closest place. And they checked in, but it was literally the night before the hotel was supposed to close down for the season. So they were the only guests in the hotel, which inspired him to write The Shining. That particular hotel, the Stanley, had been in financial ruin basically from the moment it was built. It never had a profitable year until The Shining came out. And now it's extremely well known as like one of the most haunted places in the world. Like they have doubled down on that. But my wife and I went out there for a horror writers convention. We were there with Josh Mallerman, a guy named Jack Ketchum, a bunch of famous horror authors. And we tried everything we could to make something happen. At one point, we were down in the basement of the Stanley Hotel, standing next to the boiler, reading scary stories to each other at midnight. Nothing worked, no matter what we did. The last night my wife and I were there, we woke up in the morning and we're laying in bed. It's like maybe 9 o'clock. The sun's out. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do with the day. And out of nowhere, the bed just started to shake. And it wasn't just like a little vibration. It felt like somebody had grabbed it and was like literally just doing this. And it didn't scare us, but like we're looking over the sides, like it wasn't making any noise. It was just shaking. And like we couldn't figure out what was doing it. The elevators were nowhere close to us. Like there was no mechanical reason. It went on for about a minute and then it just stopped. So we went downstairs for breakfast and we talked to the manager of the hotel and we told him what happened. He said, "Oh yeah, the bed in that room just does that." And like that was his explanation. So like I don't know if that was a haunted experience or not, but I think in my world like that's how it would play out. Like I wouldn't necessarily be scared by the experience. I'd be trying to figure it out. And I think that's where humans have a downfall. As humans, like if I'm standing in my office right now, if I've got a cat next to me and there's some kind of weird noise in the corner of the room, that cat is going to bolt. It's going to disappear. It doesn't care what made the noise. It doesn't want to know. It just knows it's going to go somewhere else. Me as a person, I will get up, I'll walk to the corner of the room, try to figure out what made that sound, which is, I think on an instinctual level, we know we shouldn't do that. We know we should be afraid, but we've kind of bred ourselves out of that particular instinct. And I think we could, do ourselves a little service by maybe getting back to it.
Ooh, yeah. Otherworldly experiences. We lived in Leadville, Colorado for 12 years, which was a long time to live in Leadville, Colorado at 10,000 feet elevation. And there's a hotel there, the Delaware Hotel, and it's known for being haunted as well. And before we moved to Leadville, we stayed at the Delaware, and it had all the old furniture and creaky beds and the kids we had a bedroom here and then kind of like a little closet area where they had two twin beds where we had our two boys sleeping, and it was a particularly warm night and no blankets or whatever. In the morning when we got up, one of my sons thanked me or us for covering them with blankets because it got chilly during the night, and neither of us had gotten up and put blankets on the kids. So,
Dun, dun, dun.
dun dun dun. I know it. All right, so we talked about scariest things you've ever done on purpose. I mean, you tried. Any physically scary things you ever do?
I used to jump out of airplanes all the time, but that has nothing to do with me.
All the
I
time?
promised my wife. Yeah, I mean, there was a movie with Wesley Snipes. I don't know if you remember it. I can't. I think it was called Terminal Velocity. They filmed it in South Florida, and a friend of mine was a producer that worked on a lot of the films in that area, and she got us into this movie as extras. What she didn't tell us is that we were going to have to jump out of airplanes for literally the entire couple of days that we were up there. So we did the first couple of jumps at tandem, with somebody basically teaching us how to do it, and probably another 50 or 60 jumps after that, just so they could film what they needed to film. And I kind of got hooked on it because it's a huge adrenaline rush. You literally forget every problem you have for a good minute and a half. Nothing else matters. So I did it for years. I had a lot of fun with it. But when I had a daughter, like that was when it was time to hang up the parachute.
Yeah, I would say that was probably the scariest thing I did. I was in the army and went to airborne school.
Oh,
I'm airborne and only did five jumps. But the first jump, no tandem, you go out and you're supposed to count to, 1001, 1002, 1003, and if your chute hasn't opened by 1003, you're supposed to pull, the extra one. And I just remember thinking in panic that I forgot to start counting because, you're jumping out into the void. You have no choice. And all of a sudden you're floating and it's the most incredible experience. And then my first landing was just beautiful. I think I landed into some tall grass. It was spectacular. Then of course I giggled like a crazy woman, knowing that I had all my parts intact and before I was yelled at by the mean drill sergeants. Anyway, yeah.
You forget all of your instructions, I think, and jumping out of an army like a helicopter or like that kind of thing is a whole other world because
C-130,
the
yeah.
chutes go much, yeah, they go much faster. You're falling much faster than you do in like a civilian jump. That's scary stuff.
Yeah, it was scary. Glad I did it. Don't want to do it again anymore. No thanks. Um, JD Barker, when you are not writing, what do you do to shake off the darkness?
Writing is the thing that I've always done for fun, like so long before people started paying me to do it. So I've been writing my entire life. So like that's my hobby, but like now I get to do my hobby for, the day job. But I wrap up the business side of stuff, like writing, my whole world basically shuts down at 3 o'clock. And I go for a run around the island where I live, Newcastle. Use that time to kind of get my head on straight, think about what I'm going to work on the next day. Come home, I exercise a little bit, and then I spend the rest of the night with my wife and daughter. Because honestly, like that's what it's about, like being able to have that family time. I'm blessed where I get to work at home. I get to see my daughter growing up. I don't miss a single minute of it. I just try to take advantage of that as much as I can.
Oh, that is wonderful. What advice might you offer to undiscovered authors like myself, aside from don't quit your day job?
Well, that's part of it. I think writing every day is another big aspect of it. I mean, for somebody like me, like I have to write every day. Like I get twitchy if I don't do it. And I think you need to be like that in order to succeed in this business. I've run into people that tell me they want to be a writer, but they have to force themselves to get into the chair and actually do the work. So if you have to force yourself to do something, it's probably not where you want to end up as a long-term career. But in this world, like your life can change on a dime. I know mine did. Like I was out on a run actually at our house in Pennsylvania when I got a call from my agent for The Fourth Monkey, which was my second book. And she said, "Listen, are you sitting down?" And I said, "No, I'm out on a run." I just got an offer from the UK for $160,000, which was fantastic. So I said, "Let me run home. I'm gonna tell my wife." And by the time I got home, that dollar amount had went up even higher. We decided to go out for dinner, and by the time we left the restaurant, we were over seven figures with a film and TV show attached. The day before, I didn't have a publishing deal. So like everything can change, literally on a dime. You have to keep going, keep chugging away. You're going to hear no more times than you can count. But sooner or later you will hear yes.
How did you find your agent?
It was a weird thing. So my very first book was called Forsaken. I indie published it, but I sold a lot of copies, and that book kind of put me on everybody's radar. So the publishers, the agents, things like that. When I wrote The Fourth Monkey, I sent out query letters. I queried 53 of them, and I got 13 offers of representation in about 2 weeks. It was the exact opposite, because at this point I had a track record. So it was a little bit easier. There's a website called Publishers Marketplace where you can actually research agents. You can see their stats. I encourage every author to use that if you're trying to make a decision, because you can see what kind of deals an agent is getting. You can see whether they're good, whether they're getting big deals, little deals, whatever. You can see how they're performing for their authors. I ended up going with a woman named Kristen Nelson, who's in Colorado. So she's kind of a dark horse because she's not in New York. But when I started looking at her stats, she had a very small roster of authors. All of them were New York Times bestsellers. She had signed them all at their debut stat level. So she basically got them to that point, and all of her deals were 6 and 7 figures. So to me, she seemed like the person to go with. So just research, just like anything else, you got to make sure you're making a good business decision. An author relationship with their agent, like you spend a lot of time with that person, and it's a lifetime commitment. I mean, once they sell one of your books, you're with them forever. So like longer than a marriage. You can't divorce your agent. So make sure it's the right fit before you sign on that dotted line.
All right, wow. What's next? And do you ever question your muse's ability to feed you new ideas?
No, I've got more ideas I think than I'll ever be able to write. Right now, it's just finding the time. There's only 26 hours in the day or whatever. I never seem to be able to get all the projects done that I need to get done. I write a lot with James Patterson, so just when I think I'm going to sit down and write a solo book, he calls me up and says, "Hey, let's work on this," which takes me off in a different direction. But it's a fantastic way to make a living.
Yeah. So what's next? What are you working on right now?
I've got another book I'm working on with Patterson. I've got a new solo title coming out, and my next book to release here in the States is the one behind me, The First Scarlet Door, which is a prequel to my 4MK thriller series. I wrote 3 prequels during COVID.
All right. All right. You have some upcoming appearances, and I'm not going to keep you because you have to pack for Spain. You're going to Spain next week,
I know,
right?
and I do need to pack.
Yeah.
It's coming up quick.
What are you doing in Spain? How'd you get to go to Spain?
Well, at this point, I'm in 150 different countries. So I've got books in a lot of different places. Spain, I've been to a few times already. The fans there are fantastic. The book that you just held up is actually releasing there, so I'm going there for that, which is going to be a lot of fun. I think I fly into Madrid, then I take the train to Barcelona. I'm there for about a week or so, which is always a good time.
And then you're going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada in November. Nevada.
For Author
Nevada.
Nation, yeah, for Author Nation. That's a
Right.
really fun conference. If you're a writer, you should definitely try to make some time to get to Author Nation.
Huh. Maybe I'll try to get there.
It's
It's not that
huge.
far.
I
I
mean,
could drive.
there's thousands and thousands of writers. It's the largest writer conference in the world.
All right. Well, JD Barker, do you have anything else you would like our listeners and readers to know about you, about your work?
No, I mean, you can find me on all the social medias at JD Barker. My website is jdbarker.com, and the books can be found in pretty much every bookstore.
I will have links below for sure. And listeners out there, give us a thumbs up, leave us some comments, subscribe to my channel, and holy mackerel, Judy Barker, author of Something I Keep Upstairs, which will keep you turning pages and hiding under your covers a little bit, I think. Get it now, and your other books. I'll have links to your other books as well, too. JD, don't stop writing, stay out of basements, and keep being awesome. Thank you for sharing your life and your work with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You take care and safe travels.